everyone, and welcome to Valoranting.
I do want to cuss. I personally think that is fucking bullshit. What can I do for you? What can I do for you? This is the best produced podcast I've ever been in.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Valoranting. I had a week off for the first time ever last week, so I'm happy to be back with my boys, Vansili and Veli. We've got an absolutely packed show today. Lots to talk about. Of course, it is Tuesday, and Riot dropped a patch on us. We'll get up to that in just a second. First of all, Vansili, how you doing, my man? How you feeling?
Doing great, dude. Just like you, I had a good weekend. I escaped in Toronto, so I went from one city to another city, but got some golf in, got a birthday party in. Now I'm back. Quarantine for 2 weeks. I know I don't have to because I'm going from a province to the other, but, you know, always got to play it safe.
Sounds good. Veli, how you doing, my man?
I didn't know we had a golf prodigy amongst us, but, you know, Vansili, what's up? Moses, I feel good. You know what, Moses? I took your place as a host last week, and I'm going to say this. I never knew how valuable and how much I would ever miss your deep voice until it was gone. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to talk about TSM getting donked on and twerked on out of groups and everything else that we have planned for today.
Sounds good. Well, let's jump right into it. We do have, for our first topic this week, some more developer communications. And on the back of that, we've got some patch notes as well. So let's talk about the Ask Valorant number 6 again. And the big one here was, is the op too good? And I'll narrate here for you. Basically, they've tried different iterations of the op. Okay, I'll read it later. As far as the the op is concerned, Dan, I need to read it, man. I can't see them all. There we go.
Read faster.
Oh, good.
Read diagonally.
So we think the operator isn't too OP, but do believe that the feeling sometimes comes from a lack of personal agency against the weapon for agents that don't have tools to break line of sight for themselves, coupled with an overwhelming amount of team coordination to effectively counter an operator. So I don't need to read the rest because that's basically it, is that you need to use utility and teamwork to get past the fact that the operator is going to one-shot you. So I think that there is some tweaking that they probably should consider. Vansili, let's talk a little bit about like the scoping noises, all the things that a lot of people kick around as potential fixes. Do you think that a scope sound, for instance, would be a good addition for the op?
Yeah, I think when we're looking at the game, though, a scoping sound would probably be heard if you're playing close range, you're trying to lurk, you know, you're one versus an op or something like that. Then the scoping sound would definitely be nice to have. But I think in general, from what I've read from this patch or this question from the developers, or to the developers, is that the op, when you're playing long range, for example, just opping down long A, opping down long C, is just impossible to counter if you don't have the right tool set, if you don't have the smoke, if your smoke already died like 5 seconds into the game. And I used to be the type of person that's like, you know what, maybe you kind of do need to nerf, maybe not limit more than one op and not have two ops and stuff like that too. But coming from Counter-Strike myself, there is situations where you have one all-star operator or one all-star opper in CSGO, and from time to time, in a defensive setup, if you want to go all out and spend more money, then it's nice to have a secondary opper so that you could actually secure as many rounds as you can on the defender side. It's a high risk, high reward, and it could be countered. I think right now for Valorant, the more that we're watching these tournaments, it's doable as well. It's not only from, like, for example, Brimstone smokes or Omen smokes now. Think about the cyber cages that could actually help. Think about the buffs that are coming in from Viper 2 that's been announced as well. That's going to help if you're going to use the poison clouds and stuff like that. So I think there's already ways to negate the fact to get through and close quarters versus ops coming up very soon in Valorant, where I don't think that you need to go towards hey, let's max the amount of ops that we need in a team. I think the way that it's made right now, it's great. I think the money maybe could be a little bit more expensive, and a scope sound. Maybe those two things for me.
Ellie, how about yourself? You think the op's too OP?
No, the op isn't OP. It comes to a point in time where, you know what, I like the zoom in sound. I'll take that. But then it gets to a point where we question ourselves, how often do we have to hold people's hands to say, hey, there's a guy with a weapon that's going to kill you in one shot on the other side of this wall looking down this pathway. If you peek him, you're going to die. Until it finally registers. I'm not a CS guy. And I never followed CS like Vansili and everyone else out there. But I do know that common sense is common sense. I know Wardell is sitting down on the sand watching beer, whatever. You know what? You have agents that can counter that. You have agents that can scope out for intel. You have agents that have cameras. You have drones. You have smokes that could stop him from seeing you if you place it in between you. I know it's like magic, right? It's genius. I don't feel like the op is OP. Annoying, yes. OP, no, because you can counter it. You can beat oppers. There's oppers that have bad games. There's oppers that are mad inconsistent. If opping is so easy, Skadoodle would be on T1 right now and they'd be in championship game last weekend. So that's really all I got to say about that.
I don't think that the opping part of Skadoodle's game is necessarily the main issue, but I mean it's all the other things around it. I think has been the problem. Anyway, we won't get into that just yet. I get it. So I mean, in my opinion, the op I think is definitely fine in a vacuum, but in the greater context of Valorant, I think that there needs to be a little bit more options to counter it. And as they change up agents and stuff like that, we're likely going to see more utility-based approaches to the op that will counter it and that kind of thing. So let's jump into the patch notes. We have, and I guess I'll lead right with it. Rest in peace, Sage. It was nice knowing you. A lot of players in the competitive scene have chosen to go with Sageless comps before this patch. But if you didn't think that we weren't going to see Sage a lot in some compositions before, now it's a different story. The heal has been reduced by 40%. So that's a pretty big nerf. And the self heal has also been reduced. So it also takes longer to heal yourself over 10. Like, it's insane. The size of the slow orb has been reduced by 30%. The barrier orb did go down in cost, but also now has a 3-second delay before it actually becomes fully functional. So quick walls to prevent people from busting in. Like, if you need to use your utility, let's say, I don't know, Vansili, midway through a push to try and prevent a team from getting through. That's not going to happen anymore because the wall is going to have half the HP that it normally does. In 3 seconds at this level, well, at the competitive level play, which we normally find ourselves talking about, is significant. So, Vansili, we'll leave with you again. Do we like put her on a funeral pyre and shoot arrows into her floating raft, or what?
Yeah, I think to be honest, like you said here, Moses, at this point when Sage was starting to become more like a Sageless comp that we're starting to see from teams, now that it's actually being nerfed even more, I think that her playability is going to be pretty much, the pick is going to be so low, probably replaced by Breach, that we're probably going to talk about in a second. My opinion about the slow orb is the size has been reduced by 30%. I want to know what that size is when you're actually in game, because at that point, I do agree that it was kind of big before, but it was more the timing than anything else. How long it stays onto the floor versus the size was it for me. Because, for example, if I still want to use Sage into my composition and I want to frost the ground, if it's 30% less, that means I might be in a situation where if a team is rushing me and I'm trying to put a slow orb to the ground, where it catches them is probably going to still be in a line of sight versus myself where I can fall back, or a line of sight where my teammates cannot rotate so that they could set up these crossfires and prevent these pushes from coming through. So, for example, again, barrier orb, I throw it up, I throw a sage orb on the ground, a frost orb, the wall breaks, everybody's still in position to try to kill me, and they're not really going to be affected by the slow orb. So I think the slow orb was a little bit too much, in my opinion, from a first glance. But overall, I kind of do like the self heal thing though, because or at least the debuff on the healing. I don't think it was a big deal in general for Valorant, but making it so that it's harder to heal and stuff like that too is another plus for those and everybody that's been complaining about how OP the heal could be. Although I don't think it makes that much of a difference. It was really about the slow orb for me.
Absolutely. So Veli, it's a bit of a sad day for Sage mains. I saw someone put in the chat that Sag, which is perfect actually. So yeah, she's very sad, and she'll be sitting on the bench, I think, for a little while as well. So Veli, what's your take on Riot's approach here? Do you think they went too far?
They nerfed the shit out of my baby Sage. I love her. She's so beautiful. I really love the ice wall, the slow orbs, but the slow orb being 30% smaller is so significant that this is going to be a big shakeup. Now, we're already starting to see, and both of you have said this already, Sageless comps, right? Is this now going to solidify the fact that we're going to see less of her from this point on? Yes, healing people to 60 health instead of 100. That's a big blow, but I still think the ability to bring someone back to life is going to be great. So how is this going to affect the professional meta? I have no idea yet, but I mean, what more are they really going to do to Sage? That wall to me was so one of a kind. No one else has anything like it. And the fact that it's so weak now, I think was the wrong play. It made her unique. So hopefully that's not too big of a blow. Because if those ice walls are really simple to break down, let's be honest, Moses, man, silly. You know, whenever a retake happens,
You guys shooting
whatnot,
it with an
that
AK,
ice wall
or
is
sorry,
gonna be wrong.
Anthem, yeah. Sorry to
Yeah,
talk over
yeah,
there.
Exactly.
No, you're good. I do it to you all the time, Moses. You good, man.
No,
Yeah, I mean, like
you're
the
right,
ability.
Say it's my
Go
turn.
ahead, Van Silly.
Sorry, Moses, it's my turn to cut you. But just the simplest example from like just a regular rank play, right? For somebody that's like a gold or platinum or something like that, when they're playing Sage on mid Haven, if they spot somebody inside the window and they're getting shot at, they're like, "Oh, we might get pushed in. Let me put a wall up." But if that guy's still at window, he's shooting 3 or 4 bullets or maybe 5 bullets at this point of a Vandal or a Phantom, and that middle part of that wall is already broken. So yes, maybe I could self boost at that point to get a ledge, but my wall is already broken. I've wasted 300 credits at that point too. So I think the Sage wall has become useless at this point. And overall, I guess the strongest part of her kit now is just a res, like Veli was saying.
I kind of think that they went a little bit too far with Sage. I don't really know why they chose her specifically to go after this time around. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's some cries from the community, or maybe they're trying to reduce her specific impact. Maybe they're just a month behind the meta a little bit in continuing to nerf her in her strength. I mean, obviously we have guys like David P who are probably on suicide watch right now, just trying to figure out like what the hell he's going to do now if he can't play his battle stage. But it's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate that a lot of these players, especially with those who have taken the time to master her abilities, are now going to be forced to change. And this is kind of the echoes of the Overwatch problem that we've talked about for so long when it comes to agent balancing. Is that now you're going to have a lot of people who are sitting on the back of saying, well, shit, I mean, this is a player that I picked 85% of the time, except for maybe once or twice a tournament on, say, Ascent. And now I have to go and learn a new agent. And as we've seen with poor Skadoodle on T1, if you don't have your agent locked down, in addition to your already your current skill set, you might find yourself in big trouble. So this could be a lot of pressure on a lot of people in the competitive community to at all ranks. And luckily, we were able to get Van Silly's perspective from his gold rank play as well. Let's talk about Killjoy. Killjoy also got
at least
some
I can
changes.
Play the game, Moses. At least I can play the game.
Killjoy. Oh, go back up a little bit, Dan. So they did add a brief wind up before damage begins on the nanoswarm, so it's not instantaneous. DPS has been reduced from 60 to 40, and the visual effects have been added to make it easier to spot the grenade on the ground. And the stealth audio range has been slightly increased. So yeah, that was a big thing with the nanoswarm, is being able to see it. So the turret's no longer revealed by Sova's recon bolts. So that's a slight buff. More effectively shoots at an enemy's last known location. That's a little bit better. Killjoy's turret is still a little bit wonky. It'll shoot at people through walls in some situations. Mm-hmm. But as far as the nanoswarm stuff, I think I don't want to talk about it just yet. We have Killjoy on our own block later. But we'll kind of come back to that. So I guess we'll just talk about the brief changes here, Van Silly, to Nanoswarm. And while we go into Viper, what do you think about the changes to Nanoswarm? They seem fine in my opinion.
Nanoswarm, yeah, big change actually. And I think now that it's maybe more visible, and at the same time the audio comes through and it's a wind up, I think it's going to change a little bit in those plays, that 1v1, the intense moments where finally could spot him and you could shoot him. But on the other side of the spectrum is, now that it's a lot more visible and easier to kill, what's left in her toolkit now that's going to be useful, right? Nothing. The alarm bot's going to spot some people, but very rare that it actually hits the people to get that double damage. The turret is going to do a bit. I guess it spots them a little bit easier. That's going to help in the kit for the crossfire kind of thing and crossfire setups for the sight holds. But the nanoswarm, I think now that it's been, I complained about it a lot, but now that I think about it too, it's like, you're taking that away where maybe Cypher is going to come back into play. That's going to be more interesting to use, because even then when you looked at the past Top Flash or any other event so far with Killjoy, her lockdown ability hasn't been that impactful in terms of an ultimate play, with the exception of maybe that Envy round where it went like down the wire with the seconds, 2 people got locked down and they were trying to shoot them. But aside from that,
Yeah.
I don't think it made some big plays or anything important in terms of using a lockdown as the ultimate. So now you're taking away the Nano Swarm that's very good in her kit. I think we're going back to Cypher.
No. Yeah, I think Killjoy was kind of on the bubble. What do you think, Veli?
No, she was definitely on the bubble. And you know what? My homies at Riot, they popped the shit out that bubble. So you take a look at Killjoy and what she was able to do compared to Cypher. There is an argument to be had that Cypher is still the better site lockdown agent, right? And especially for the fact that Cypher has his own version of the smoke. Now, the one thing about Killjoy is that Nano Sword was amazing. That was literally the only thing she had. Now, how does that get buffed? Meanwhile, Raze has about 30 abilities that can kill you, right? No, they should have left her alone, especially for the fact. Now, the part that scares me, I feel like the only thing they should have fixed on Killjoy was just the cloak nades, right? Now, I hope that they don't make it to where the visibility isn't obviously high to where you can see it now. It has to be some type of like Halo. I keep bringing Halo because of you, Moses. I'm sorry, man. Some type of Halo cloaking level of transparency to where it's like you have to really look for it and get it. Because if you're able to see it and just shoot it, Killjoy is literally nothing. She's nothing. Just an alarm.
We have more to talk about with some stuff later for Killjoy. So we'll actually jump over to Viper really quick. I want to go deep on Killjoy because I think there's a lot to be said there. So Viper's got a couple of changes. Well, very light buff, I guess you could say. So her toxic screen can now be placed during the buy phase of the rounds and through spawn barrier, so she can set up those placements before the round starts. Toxic screen now goes up faster along its full length once it starts to form. So it's just a faster deploy, and you can deploy before the round starts. And decay on all smoke abilities no longer affects your allies. So that will also, in turn, make Viper's Pit less deadly to your teammates. Well, not deadly at all to your teammates because you're not going to be suffering from that decay. So having your teammates inside of a Viper's Pit to support the Viper is going to be very, very big. So I think that, you know, most ultimate abilities I don't think are really going to make or break an agent's pick rate. But her smokes as well, even though, again, they're deployable. I don't know if this is going to change her pick rate a lot, but it is a nice little buff to someone that Riot seemingly still feels is underutilized. So Vancil, you think now with that little buff that we're going to see a little bit more Viper in the rotations, especially with, you know, sad Sage mains having to look for somewhere else to go?
That's what I was going to say, right? For example, if you're going to get rid of a Sage that kind of was still useful on Split, now you have a Viper that could do the Viper Pit, or we've seen Som use it before from Dignitas, using Viper a lot towards his mid side. I think there's probably the ability or the opportunity to pick Sage towards that map. Overall, though, I think the fact that it doesn't decay your teammates is a fun one. It's a nice one. You can play within her smokes now. But even the Viper Pit itself, I think when you're thinking about a retake scenario where now it's a 3 versus 3 or 3 versus 2 on the attacker side, you plant the spike, you pop the Viper's Pit, 3 guards are now hiding inside the pit instead because they're at full HP, full armor, and as soon as somebody walks into it, then they're starting to decay on armor, they're starting to decay on health if they don't have any more armor, and you give a huge advantage for the people still alive on the attacker side in this example. I think it's going to be a nice scenario to test out, but of course, when you're looking at the meta or how pro teams will probably set up, you won't have everybody playing inside that pit. It'll just be interesting still to test out. Like, we're looking at how many times Viper has been buffed or tweaked within the past few patches, and it's still not picked. We're just trying to find the right solution for her. So is this the right solution this time? It's still going to get tested, and I think at this point, they still have to test it some more, unfortunately.
And I think, Veli, that Viper would be... I don't know if she obviously with the healing abilities and stuff for Sage, you can't really replace that utility, especially with the Resurrect. But from a utility standpoint, I think maybe that Viper is a little bit more interesting now of a pick when compared to the now nerf Sage. What do you think about that?
I don't think it's fair that we would have to look at just Sage. Let's compare everyone else in these lineups. Like, you know, immediately you have Brimstones, you have your Breaches, you have everyone else out there. Why would I even want to pick Viper at this
Brimstone.
point?
Brimstone.
Exactly.
Brimstone over Sage as well. Yep.
Yes, and even Ben Silly's talking about site retakes. I would love to retake a site by using Rolling Thunder. You know what I'm saying? Like that to me is like gonna be way better than anything that Viper can do. Someone in the chat just said maybe they should look at a rework, and I think the same. Her utility kit has to be looked at because apparently it's not strong enough to make a difference in the game. It's more of like whenever you go against a Viper, it's not like, oh man, she's so good. This Viper player is amazing. Oh, I can't get past this ability. You always say to yourself in your head, I'm not the only one. I know I'm not. But whenever you see that big fucking green cloud, the one thing you looking like this, right? The one thing everyone says is, oh shit, we gotta go through this now. You're not worried about dying. You're not worried about it being like overly OP. You're just worried about just going through just the fucking smoke and smog just to kill somebody. She needs a rework.
Well, now you're going to be going through it to kill a bunch of people because their allies are going to be chilling in there as well.
I want to see. I need a sample size of that ability and play with the most efficient.
Imagine a site lockdown on like B bind or something like that, where like the entire site is Viper's pit, and there's like the entire enemy team is just like in all sorts of different weird fucking corners and shit like that. You're not going to be able to find them. But the only thing that I'm a bit confused about with Viper as far as her kit is concerned is the toxic screen. It just doesn't seem like that good of an ability. It's just it's just not good. I don't know. Like you can make it deploy faster. You can deploy it whenever you like and that kind of stuff. But it's just it's a placeable ability that in some cases is going to be completely irrelevant to your team strategy. So then you have your smoke and your Viper's pit and your little acid pool. You know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Viper. But the big one for me here is going to be Breach. Breach mains are rejoicing in the streets. As Breach is the next one up to get much needed buffs and some nice ones as well. So his off-screen flashes now match behavior of all other flashes in the game and apply a minimum amount of flash more aggressively. This is something I noticed a lot with Breach as I played him a lot when I was capable of playing the game. Charges increased from 2 to 3, so an extra flash entirely is huge, and reduce the wind-up time. So I imagine the deploy time, so the amount of time for him to actually fire off the charge, by a millisecond or something like that. So nice job. So that's nice. Rolling Thunder detonation delay between blasts is decreased, so it's going to explode more often, I believe. Now, and this is not something that's covered in the patch notes, but I believe concussion is also comes off as E as well, right? So, or his whatever the hell the goddamn thing is called, earthquake. That's a concussion effect as well. Yeah. What's that? Fault line. That's one. So as far as the fault line is concerned, you're going to have the ability to get people off their ops as well. So Breach is now definitely playing into what we were talking about with the operator balance, is just plain utility and fighting it with utility. And Breach was designed, in my opinion, to be that agent, and is now getting a lot more love from Riot in that regard. So Vansili, I imagine that Breach, especially with what's happening with Sage and the whole operator discussion and prevalence, is going to be huge coming up soon.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, more to like making the changes and try to make everybody happy. How can you kill like two birds in one stone? It's basically how can we counterattack the ops, and now we can actually change with Breach so that he can get picked more. So that adding another flash, that's a huge thing right now, especially for Breach. I think a lot of Breach main, as you were saying, Moses, is going to be very happy about that. Shazam, who's already using Breach onto Ascent, and we're looking at a lot of Japanese teams actually using Breach on Split as well. They're just happy to have that extra flash. The fault line, because you could actually deploy it through walls, and knowing, for example, if you're going to play on the Haven at the entrance of the A lobby, and you think that the Opera is going to be by the orb of A long, you could actually just do a fault line across the map to try to get him concussed. I think that would be a great way to push those Operas away. And at the same time, not letting him being able to scope when they're being hit. It's a direct counter to the Operas right now, just based on one agent. So now the whole meta is going to change into, okay, well, we're going to start using Breach a lot more into these games. And within these games is the goal now, let's try to kill Breach as fast as possible so that we could actually keep our Opera Jet alive as long as possible to win these rounds for us. So I think it gets very interesting when you're looking at the tweaks of all of these agents, is not on the agent itself, but also on how the game is being played, which is super fun to actually learn as a whole, right? And it's going to take some time. Maybe it's not the right solution all the time, every time they come out with a new patch, and it's not the right way to play the game when you're looking at a pro level. But now that we continue to get these events and Ignition series and stuff, that's what's going to help.
Veli, quick thoughts on the Breach changes?
Yeah. Breach, my man Breach is going to be the ultimate site attacking agent. Ain't nothing going to stop him. Having two of those flashes were like, okay, because you can't use that flash to run in as yourself. He's not Phoenix, right? You need complete teamwork.
That's right.
That just adds another counter to Oppers. Now, Oppers OP, yes, only if you don't use utility. Now you have an agent that does it all. I love the Rolling Thunder change, make it faster. He clears sites when it comes to retakes. He does it all. So I hope we see a lot more Breach, because I've been one of the people that has said that he needs to be meta for so long. And Shazam is using, like Van Silly said, I want to see more people put him into that starting lineup. I think that he's way more valuable than pros are valuing him at right now at this very moment.
Absolutely. So I kind of think that Breach. I was just kind of thinking of whether or not Breach's extra flash is going to be used more in I have this feeling that we're going to see like super aggro Breach mains just kind of running around fragging, and really Breach can be used as a lurk as well if you think about it in certain ways. But I'm not the pro strategist here either, so let's jump away from Breach and talk a little bit about so what's that?
You can shoot the Breach
Say that again,
flash
Valley?
faster as well, right? So
yeah,
so
and you shoot it faster. So yeah, you can be super aggro, man. I mean, it's gonna be fun to watch.
Oh,
yeah. So updated the physics on Sova's cape, so you couldn't wiggle outside his hitbox. So the cape jiggle, as we've seen so many times, is gonna be less viable. And they've also made his hands look nicer, which is great. I'm glad that Sova's found the moisturizer bottle and is taking care of himself. Shotguns, nerf across the board. I don't want to read everything here, but it's just they nerf shotguns. That's what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
The price has been increased on the Judge. Firing rates increased. The Vandal. Hold on. Pause on the Vandal. That's one little that's one little thing that people probably want to know about. The Vandal's getting a buff. And it's increased firing rate by a little bit, and they increased their damage by a little bit. And the goal is to just slightly tweak it to get it close to the Phantom. That's the whole idea. They've also updated the hit impact VFX to go along with the Ask Valorant / article they put out about hit registration. So if you guys want to jump in depth on all this stuff, I don't want to read it all to you, as it's not particularly exciting talking about VFX for hit registration.
So this is cool.
Yeah, it's all good. So you can also now remake your match if you have an issue with a match, if let's say 4 out of 5 or someone drops. A few other changes to rank visuals, and now and this is just for us esports people who are excited about observer changes. A lot of nice observer changes coming in that will make the viewing experience of competitive tournaments much more exciting. So that's that. That's kind of it for the patch. A couple of bug fixes in there as well. I know that there's been some rumblings about some stuff not functioning right now, but patch days are always exciting, and you're going to get lots of bugs and stuff like that, especially as they try and go out and quash that. So hopefully it's not going too badly out there. So overall, a very pivotal patch. I mean, it's at least in the competitive meta.
I like it.
I don't really. This is going to sound super elitist. I don't really dabble with the normal people. I'm only interested in the pros. So I mean, I'll be interested to see both the impact in the community as well as the impact with the competitive scene, which we've all grown so accustomed to watching. Sage plays, and shout out again to David P and all the Sage mains out there who are crying into their pillows. So we're now, speaking of competitive, moving on to the Ignition series, or at least the end of, because Pop Flash was the end of the Ignition series, at least in its current form. So way back, this is back in June, it looks like June 16th. The Ignition series was announced. It did say that there was going to be a limited amount of events. And everyone that was going to be participating in it, this was essentially a testing stage. They were going to use it as a testing stage to see everyone. Everyone will be able to use their own formats. I know that there's no more NA Ignition series events, but I'm just been told here that that's not 100% true. There will still be more Ignition series events, just not in North America, the most important region. So as far as the rest of the Ignition series events, as the whole program kind of winds down, I guess we're now looking backwards to see like what was it all about. What was achieved, what was I guess
everything. Moses.
What's to come? And we talked to Kazar about this not long ago. We had him on the show where we were kind of asking. Actually, Veli asked him, how are you going to maintain hype when this is all over? And let's hear from him again.
How how's it going, Kazzer, man? My question was, all right, so Valorant, even before it came out, there was a ton of hype. It was ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it besides Halo back in the day, right? What's your goal to maintain that hype until we reach that fully fledged esports scene?
Yeah, that is, the hype is awesome, but the hype is scary because as soon as beta came out and fans wanted to see more, they just wanted the biggest things then. And they want the biggest things now. I think if you ask fans what they want worlds. They want like a Valorant World Championship tomorrow. I think the challenge is we can't do that. We need to make sure that we're, I think a lot of fans want something entertaining and fun, like right now as big as possible. And we're trying to think about how do we create something that's around 5-10 years, because we know there's going to be a lot of players that invest their life into this. There's going to be teams that invest a lot of money and a lot of resources into building the teams. We want to ensure that we create something that is sustainable and is growing years down the line. So we're trying to balance feeding the hype, and I think that's where Ignition Series allows us to feed that hype and allows fans to see something, allows the organizers to get involved while trying to think about years down the line. We're careful to not go too quickly. We know that if we were to come out with, let's say there was a franchise league, day one of the game came out, it wouldn't go well. Even though I think teams never want to get involved, it just wouldn't go well, and it wouldn't be around 5-10 years from now. So we're trying to feed the hype enough where players don't feel like we're forgetting about them, but also try to build something slowly that we know will last a very long time.
So the idea here and the idea that Kazzer just explained was that even though this might be the beginning, it's certainly not the end. So I guess looking back at the Ignition series, it started, I won't say it started slowly, but the way that it kind of reached its apex, I would say, in my opinion, the FaZe event was probably, and PAX as well. They were all awesome. Like the T1 event was excellent as well. And they had so many opportunities to show off these and build rivalries and stuff like that. So Vansili, if this is the end of the North American Ignition series, do you think that we're going to see an open circuit come in next, or do you think that Riot has something up their sleeves for the next stage?
I have a feeling that an open circuit could be coming into the next year, because when you're looking at the amount of Ignition series that came out in the past few months, it was all about testing out the formats, right? What was the best format? Is the money system okay? Or is it enough rounds in competition in pro play? Are there any compositions or agents that are being abused, quote unquote, Jet, at this point? Do we need to nerf her? Is a BO3 the best solution for a grand finals? BO5, double elimination, all this kind of stuff that has to be taught or thought about, rather, from Riot's perspective, the more Ignition series that we had. Because the good thing about it was that we gave a lot of leeway for the tournament organizers for the Ignition series to choose the rule sets and the formats that they want. So this gives a chance here for Riot, based on timing, 4 days, 5 days, 3 days, what is the best solution so they could start implementing some sort of circuit into the next year. And last but not least, but look at it, they've worked with Nerd Street Gamers, they've worked with Pulse, they've worked with T1, all the organizations as well, to try to figure out, and Flashpoint, of course, to figure out who would be the right tournament organizers to have maybe a partner into the next season and stuff like that, so we could actually have a more consistent or top of the line way of producing a show until they figure out later on down the line, like he was saying, 5-10 years, are we actually going to be ready to get into the league portion of things as well? As we want to take things super slow, I think the format definitely is the first thing that they're going to look at, and then figure out who they want to work with, so that we continue to grow this scene organically while more agents coming out, more tweaks are coming out, and then hopefully another map or two is going to come out as well, so we can really solidify the ecosystem of Valorant.
Absolutely. And Veli, do you think that Riot overall is happy with how the Ignition series went overall?
Happy? They should be fucking ecstatic. Like, okay, so let's look at it. I'm looking at the list right now of like all the Valorant events. They've put up $200,000 more, plus up for grabs, and the viewership steadily rose. Now Riot put themselves in a situation where you have a rivalry in NA. You have the storylines. You have the major orgs here. None of this would have ever been here if it wasn't for this grassroots program. So this grassroots program, in my opinion, gets an A++. They hit every nail on the head. The only thing that I don't like, and shout out to who was that in the chat? It's gonna be Darko Plax. What's up, man? Darko Plax is talking about just the tournament formats. I believe Vansili spoke about the formats as well. In EU specifically. that gets looked at as well. Make sure everyone's at a level playing field, and just the rules are cool. Things look great because we're able to test out the game in a competitive setting before the game was even ready for an esports scene. And now we know what to work on, and now we know what to put into the game to make things better from when the esports scene really kick off. I think they're in a great place, to be honest. Better than a lot of other games out there, to be completely honest.
Absolutely. And I mean, they also have to look at the people that jumped on board and were supporting, like guys like Myth, who are having those big viewing parties. Sean Garris had a great viewing party as well. There's a lot of community support behind these events. And I would hope that that there's something coming up immediately after, because, you know, we want to keep seeing these events, and I want to have stuff to talk about as well. You know, exactly. Just stick with it, you know, and I think that, you know, there's, again, looking at the chat, there's a couple of questions about format. Is it going to be, you know, should there be more differentiation, that kind of thing? But in my opinion, the storylines and the teams and the players have been making these tournaments interesting more than the formats have. Even though for some reason Europe just wants to keep having these gulag style tournaments where you have best of ones to make it out of group stages or lower brackets or Jesus, even out of semifinals. You know, it's been a little bit rough. So I would love to see some unification of tournament formats, and then allow what has happened in North America to happen everywhere else. Let the teams do the talking, where you're not having to look back and say, well, this was a best of one. This was only invited teams. This had no qualifier. I would like to see an open series. Yeah. What? You don't like it?
I said you don't want those conversations where it's
if you
like
you don't want these secondary things kind of hanging over the storylines, because that's what's been, I think, the main driver in North America is the storylines, and I want to keep seeing more of that. So I hope that what Riot does is they have a unified format, or at least a suggested format, maybe not enforced, but then allow you know, like the ESLs of the world to start up their little leagues and all these other things to start up, where you have like the Nerd Street Gamers monthlies. You know, those are $10,000 tournaments. These aren't small tournaments. So more stuff like that to continue to allow the ecosystem to grow at all levels will be really exciting, and we can have those premier events as well, whatever they might look like. They might even go to the PUBG system where they say, spend as much money as you want and go bananas. You know, do what you like, which would be exciting as well. But who knows what's going to happen? We'll have to wait for Riot to give us that information. Let's move on now to roster moves. Always a fun topic, and it's every week that we get to talk about it. So the first thing we want to talk about is Space Station. Belly's wearing the shirt today, and SSG, one of my favorite orgs. I know the guys there very well. They've signed almost a full roster, no coach either. But they've got Insky, it's Kaplan, Rokazor, and Seth. So I guess I'll start with the experts here. Veli, tell me what you know about this squad.
So I spoke to Unit.
Nothing, it's okay, because I don't know.
okay. No. I have an answer. So Unit, who's a part of Space Station Gaming, he's amazing. He picks up all the teams, he scouts them, whatever. So I asked him, I said, you know, how was this roster chosen? And what are the plans for your fifth, along with other various questions? Basically, his answer came down to this. We were looking at rosters, and we saw this team playing well while only playing together for a few weeks in the phase qualifier, against TSM in the phase ignition. Watched them scrim and saw a lot of potential. Now, regarding our fifth, we've been trying out players all week, and we have 2 more people in the next few days. But my plan is to really work to get a good coach with these guys. Now, their plan right now, Moses, they're looking to have their fifth after the next post-invitational, and then they want to get a coach. But looking for a coach is amongst, like, that's number one priority, like, basically, too, because they want to make sure that they have someone behind all these players to set them right, and especially that coach can potentially help them pick up a fifth. Now, me knowing Space Station Gaming, for them to join a scene like Valorant is pretty amazing, because in any game that they join, Moses, you know this, they treat their players so well. They have their backs. There's no scandals, no drama. They make sure everyone gets paid, and the content is off the chain. And plus, you know, I love their apparel. So this Space Station team, I'm going to keep an eye on. Do I think they're going to be at the very top day one, new team, whatever? No, but I expect them to have continuous progress, because that's all they have in Rocket League, Rainbow Six, any other game that they join. They always progress. They have a great support staff behind them.
And Silly, what do you think about this squad? Is this someone that we should be watching? Any X factors on this squad that we just don't know about?
I think they should definitely
that I don't
be
know
a team
about?
to be looked out for. Oh, I mean, you've seen
ADG.
them, Moses, because when they were actually
Yeah.
before they were SSG and they were playing during the phase qualifier, and it took a map away from TSM. But again, it's like one of those morning matches again with the TSM storyline. But
9 a.m.
it
or
was
else
Bloom.
like, where am I? Streaming till 4 in the morning.
Exactly. So it's Bloom, right? So Bloom with this roster was actually really good. And you're thinking about Roka, the way that he plays Arena, the way that he uses the Sheriff. He's getting a lot of praise from even the current pros in the scene in Valorant in Tier 1 because they know Roka from Counter-Strike, playing with Complexity back
Right.
in the day. Kaplan actually used to play with
Roka, yeah.
Built by Gamers. Yeah, right? And Kaplan was BBG when they were Code 7 before he stepped down, no blood between the teams. And when they actually qualified for the FaZe Invitational, we had an interview with them. Kaplan was saying, like, I love this roster as a type of roster that doesn't have any type of, like, tilting. And they're always focused on trying to win, and they're always very positive, and they're pushing each other forward. So already the chemistry within that team is perfect. Where they're taking their time to find their fifth is they're trying to find the right piece that's going to move into the agent that they need, and also the teamwork and mentality that they have to just gel with together. And to have an organization like Space Station Gaming, I think it's great to have them behind their backs. I mean, I think the whole management team went to the Invitational, right? If I'm not mistaken, at this point, Valley, where they supported
They
SSG,
did.
where SSG won the Invitational as well. And you have Bro Canadian, like they're good at picking up big name players into big name organizations. So maybe at this point, people are going to be like, oh, we're not sure about Space Station Gaming because they're Bloom. They only came from a few weeks ago, but they will definitely develop into an up and coming team that's probably going to be in a top 10 within
No doubt.
months or so, I'd say.
I kind of think that I'm excited to see what SSG does. Like Valley hit it on the head. They go for a long-term approach with their org with their teams. And as obviously it's unfinished, so we need to see the fifth player. We need to see if they're going to bring a coach in, and we'll just see how they grow. I mean, there is going to be eventually a tier 2 scene in Valorant, and right now that tier 2 scene is kind of maybe making it through groups, or sorry, maybe making it through qualifiers and going out in groups like your Blooms and your mix-ups of the world, that kind of stuff. And I think that like a team like Complexity is a good model for that as well, because this is another team that is kind of starting with a long-term approach. They didn't go bananas with their payroll, and we're going to see how this team progresses and develops, and maybe the tier 2 scene will start to kind of congeal a little bit, and we'll see what maybe what will become the feeder system will look like, and where they'll be able to kind of make their bones or make their cash in these lower scale tournaments like the monthlies and stuff that we've been seeing so much. But it's good to have that ecosystem, regardless of what the perception is, because we spend so much time talking about the TSMs, the Sentinels, and that kind of stuff. Having the SSGs and the complexity of the world to have something to look forward to as again from a storyline perspective is exciting. So I'm excited to see what happens with SSG and all the other teams that are forming right now, like Event Horizon, which has got some interesting names on there. If we're talking about who do we know on this one, we've got Taimu and Shadowburn. And for me, Shadowburn was always one of those. Like when I was following Overwatch, it was like the Seagull versus Shadowburn. What is Shadowburn doing? Who allowed him to film this? You know, what is you know, all these questions. But there's Roxy, Forsaken, and Feek and XD. This is what happens when you have European names that us regular English speakers don't understand. So Vansili, we'll start with you. Taimu and Shadowburn, big names leading this Event Horizon roster.
Definitely. And Taimu, when we actually, I think it was Pansy that interviewed him like a while ago, right? We were looking at the first in the beta times when Taimu was in a team, an influencer team, and they're competing within the rest within Europe. He's had so much experience, even in the Counter-Strike 1.6 days, before he went into Pro Overwatch at that point. So he's definitely a big name into the scene. He does have that drive to want to win, and we've heard that from the way that he was expressing his thirst to victory when he was actually being interviewed by Pansy at that point. So I think that now it's taken them some time, and there's 3 other names that I don't know, but under his leadership, rather, I think they could be a nice up and coming team. Overall, I'd still have to wait and see what type of qualifiers are going to go through to try to make it far. But again, as we continue to talk about the format of EU, it's going to be so difficult to get their name out at this point.
Yeah, exactly. It's like good luck getting your name out there. Best of one group stage. Like we'll see you around the bend if you don't make it. Veli, without spitting your water everywhere. Take a big gulps, big gulps.
About
So as
Event
far as
Horizon, Moses. Oh, I'm
Just
sorry.
tell me what you got.
You're gonna ask me about them, right? Yeah, I mean, basically
yeah.
the only thing I know about this roster, I know about the interview. Time who actually knew about him from Overwatch. He was a Finnish DPS player. He was really good. So that means he can click on heads. He's really good at clicking. So to see how this team is gonna be, I feel like there's some people that think, oh, EU's at the top, EU's at the I think EU is wide open, to be completely honest. So Event Horizon, they definitely have a place in that top 8. See if they can take it in that. That's up to them. Let's see if they can play for it.
Oh, I have a fun exercise for you, Van Silly. Name me your top 5 EU teams really quick.
EU teams? All right, so we got G2, we have Bonk, we have Nip, we have Fun Plus Phoenix, and then I don't know my 5th one. Shit. We have a 5th one? Did I say Liquid yet? Yeah, there we go. I was like, did I say Liquid yet?
Oh, man.
Listen, you asked me on the spot, so I was like, it's hard, man.
That's hard. Good. No, I appreciate that. Now do me 3 more teams.
No Pinky, Need More DM, and shoot, I can't. Oh, a Turkish team. I don't know what their name is.
A Turkish team.
Exactly. BLL.
There we go.
That just got it right there.
Good.
BBL.
There you go.
You want to give me more?
No. That's enough because I think we already hit the bottom of the barrel. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that everyone below them is trash, but like at the same time, it's like EU, as Veli just said, is wide open. So talking about that, we have another team from CIS that's been forming a big name out in CIS. Gambit has rumors. This is rumors, not confirmed, that Gambit will be fielding a roster of Chronicle, Defo, Shadows, and Sunset, with a 5th yet to be announced. I don't know any of those people, so I assume that they're probably good. But CIS is one of the spooky regions that just like outputs randomly awesome teams. So hopefully Gambit will be one of those teams as well. I would normally get your guys' reactions on that, but I pretty much know that I think we're in the same line there. We don't know anything about them. That's not a complete roster. I don't really care. Let's talk about T1. Let's talk about them because that's what I want to talk about. So this is coming from Food. And for those of you guys who have no idea what happened, a bunch of stuff leaked out from within T1 about the dissatisfaction with Skadoodle's performance and his comms and all this other stuff. He's then been sat. It's a little bit of a weird situation. So a Food came out to say the whole conversation is out of context and Ska has been made aware of what happened. Those words were not mine, as I was relaying what was said to me by another individual not within the team. There is no bad blood between us, and we only want the best for the team. Okay, bro. Okay, bro.
You believe that? Raise
whatever
your
you
hand.
say.
You believe that?
Yeah. Okay, bro. Sure. That's fine. I mean, leaks are the worst, especially when you're the person being leaked. And in this case, it's just a goddamn dumpster fire over there right now. I'm not like a real emergency where like everyone's all pissed off at each other, but T1 is rudderless right now. They just don't seem to have forward momentum in any way, chemistry wise, strategy wise, results. Where's the meme? Aim, positioning, all that other stuff. Anyway, it doesn't matter. T1's in a bit of a problem. Van Silly, just give me your hot take on this whole T1 situation. I don't know if we see Skadoodle again. Well, not again, but like it just doesn't feel like T1 is the future for this man. And that's just my personal opinion. I don't know where you're coming out on this.
Yeah, I think when we were looking at this, first off, I don't know why it went until August 26th that Food started talking about these allegations and trying to clear the air, because I thought we were talking about this about 2-3 weeks ago. So that being said, I think at this point, Skadoodle might be looking for another place. I wish him the best. I think he'll be more happy probably in a different roster too. And again, if it's
why would he come back to another roster?
You know,
what is he going to get more money? Is there going to be more prestige?
More
like,
money?
Is he going to have more
maybe players he wants? Maybe other players
paying him more money.
Too? Well, no, who knows?
He just got benched.
I mean, there are.
Maybe he wants to play, Moses.
There's other organizations that are looking for players right now too, right? So you never know. And Skadoodle is a hot take. He's a major winner in CS:GO, and he's not necessarily washed, right? People think that he's going to be washed. I don't think he's washed at that point.
I don't think he's certainly not washed. It just doesn't know. He just doesn't. He's not fitting in. He's just not fitting.
So if he's not fitting with T1, he could fit with somebody else. No.
I question. Yeah, theoretically he could. he could theoretically fit in. But again, I go back to the big question, and I'll put it to you this way, Veli, since I've already asked this question in the past, is that if you are Skadoodle, you've won your major, you've won you've got all these accomplishments in CS. Valorant, not only that, you have your pals with Shroud, who's now back on Twitch. Again, that's not a personal dig. Your friends are your friends. They go back. They competed together. Of course, they're going to continue to play together. But that is a huge influence to have in your streaming career and all these other things. The fact they're on the same agency roster. He's rep by Loaded. He's got a shitload of followers. He's got a 6,000 person stream. Why in the sweet Christ am I going to go from all this bullshit that I'm getting from the fans already to another team and try again when this T1 experiment was supposed to be the be all end all and just fell flat? There's some other factors that are interesting that are still ongoing in the Valorant community that we will touch on a little bit here, and that is Steel. Right. Steel did announce the fact that he is going to be looking at joining professional Valorant. And let me just reminisce a little bit. Steel was banned from iBuyPower. Anyone who follows CSGO knows the story of Steel, match fixing, et cetera, et cetera. He was permanently banned along with Swag, now Brax rather, and they can no longer participate in tournaments. The team that they were a part of before they got banned was Swag, aka Brax, Skadoodle, Steel, as well as AZK and Dazed.
Yep.
So right. AZK, Brax, Steel, and Skadoodle could potentially reunite because the IGL stuff. Don't know me yet, Veli. Okay, I'm down the fucking rabbit hole here, brother. They all reunite. Batman comes out of the closet, becomes their fifth, and then all of a sudden they've got Lex Luthor. You never thought he's the coach, and they take over the world or whatever. So there is some possibility of that kind of storyline. But then the question is, they've already done that. They have, it's not like they're going to be rejoining like old war buddies, like, oh, back in NAM when we were all together. No, it's like, oh, back when we were all like banned for match fixing in CSGO. I'm glad we can run this one back.
No, Moses, you're right. It sounds like Betty's talking about old war stories. Oh, back in NAM, because that was when they were actually good, right? No, if I'm coming into Valorant and I'm a CS guy, right, and I can play the damn game well, the last team I'm looking at is T1. Why would Steel want to go to T1, especially after seeing what Skadoodle's going through? Okay,
money.
Does you want money? You know who got money?
Yeah,
my man.
I bet you're paying more than Chaos is.
I was gonna say
100 Thieves. You talking about streaming? If I got 6,000 viewers and I want to play competitively,
Steel's an IGL.
You know what? He can. Two IGLs could be on the team at the same time. Okay, absolutely. Okay. No, but seriously,
that was iBuyPower day.
Yeah.
That was iBuyPower
day. But let's be honest though. Like, what is seriously? Yes, what is seriously next for T1? Okay, Skadoodle's not here, and it still looks like the same team. This isn't a Skadoodle problem. This is a core issue. These players, even though they were greatly hyped because they were the first star squad to be ever in Valorant, that fell off now. They weren't in tournaments. By the time they finally start playing in tournaments again, they're not even placed in top 5. They're not placed in top 6. They're getting last place. They're getting 8th at best.
They went 0-2 in Pop Flash.
That's shitty. You don't want to do that. If I'm still, I'm not getting away from CS to say I'm gonna play for the worst pro team in Valorant. That's the way to go. No, fuck that. I'm going to 100 Thieves. I'm going to someone else. I hope Skadoodle bounces back. I think
your hand down.
Can still play. You know what? No, man, keep your hand up. You're talking after me, man. So you got this.
That's all good, man. All right, I knew we were going to go with this. So I want to, before we go back to Van Steele, I want to put it to you this way, and to keep this in mind as well. Okay. I think the best fit for Steel, and shout out to the man Shinobi. Okay, this is only dollars and cents moves, only on paper. This is not about personality, fit, success, whatever. Steel, I think, in my opinion, with the players that are on C9 would be a better fit on C9 from a plug and play perspective.
Oh my God, yes.
I also think that Steel brings a work ethic with him that, he's the only guy, Van Silly, out of that whole squad that really just put everything into CS, even when he was banned. He has a YouTube channel where he's explaining his strats. He's playing, he's bringing for a little reminiscing for you as well, Van Silly. Ghost Gaming with Wardell and Sabrosa. Yep. He brought that team up as well. And now he's brought in Chaos, a team that had no presence in the top 20 in CS, and elevated them all the way up to the top 20. This is a guy that I'm open the banks for. This is a person I want on my team.
Go ahead. Good.
Oh yeah, he's arguably one of the best, if not the best, IGLs in North American CS.
Yep,
maybe.
I do agree with that, and that's why I was going to chime in too. It's to say like Steel brought a team like Chaos that went through probably like 4 or 5 team iterations before they actually started winning, and they had some sort of hope, and then now it becomes this huge conspiracy of 2 of their players, their young fraggers, being blamed by the whole Brazilian community as cheaters, but they're not, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But it's all through the helm of Steel's leadership, and Steel is kind of known to be very vocal and to have this drive to win that can maybe kind of be like I don't know if you guys watch what was that Michael Jordan documentary, right?
Yeah, The Last
Where
Dance.
he could kind of be the last dance. Exactly. He could kind of be toxic in a sense, but if you're actually able to cope with the way that he wants to always win, and that for him to win, he has to be a hard ass in the team. If you could accept that, you could bring this to the top. So to go back to iBuyPower, as you were saying before here, Moses, when it was actually Skadoodle, AZK, Brax, right? So you already have AZK and Brax that knows how to play with Steel. And on top of that, Steel back then in iBuyPower, I think it was ESEA LAN season number 15 that I got to cast. They actually beat Team Titan, which was actually one of like the top teams in Europe, coming from France back then. And North America was able to win that title for the ESEA LAN under the helm of Steel and Daze as in-game leaders for the team. And if Ska is going to stay within T1 as well, then that's 3 players that actually knows the work ethic that Steel has, and that Steel has that mindset that could actually help T1 fix those issues. Because yes, they didn't have a good showing for T1 on the last event for Pop Flash, but it doesn't mean that they're shit. Like, they're still amazing players in that roster. And because they were actually losing a couple of games or weren't performing as well, is because they came in with EU from the academy team. They had to come up with new strats. We had players playing different roles as well within that composition. I think, if I'm not mistaken, AZK was playing like a Jet Op at that point too. So him being a Breach or being a Sage, going to a Jet, trying to get all that into Pop Flash was probably not the right event for them, but they had to try things, right? And unfortunate for them, it had to be Pop Flash that they had to try new things. And it didn't work out in their end, but at least bringing Steel in that could actually put some sense into the composition they could use and a strategy based on playing already with 3 of these players in the past, it could definitely be a big plus and a big one-up for T1. Oh, and one more thing.
Really good argument.
Yeah, and one more thing. When we're talking about Ska, for example, and you're talking about Ska being like the streamer, 6,000 views and stuff like that, I still think that's bullshit when you actually want to win titles, right? Yes, money could be one thing, but titles is another thing. Look at Jason R. Jason R wanted to play with FaZe, and he wanted to win titles. He goes still with T1 right now, where he actually has 18,000 viewers right now every time that he streams. They want to win titles. It's not about the streaming career, because they know that once that's done, they could come back to it, and a fan base is still going to be there. What is still their drive while they're still young? They could still win titles. They still have room to grow and room to win titles. And Valorant is a great way for a fresh start.
You can make more money too.
Yeah, what's more important, do you think, though? What do you think if you're going to go to the trophy case and you're going to say, listen, I just won the let's say T1 has won every event. Let's say they won everything, okay? And they're owning.
Yeah.
Do you think you could take all those victories, put them all together, and compare them to the Boston Major that Skadoodle won?
Oof.
So I think it's a human nature thing. You know, well, I mean, like, it's a human nature thing. If you get to the point mentally where you're, well, so basically, nothing. And I'll caveat with this is the fact that I don't know these people personally, but I kind of project it on how I think of things. Like, it's when you leave a job or you get to a point mentally where you're done with something, and he was done with competition. How do you reignite that flame again?
By dominating another game.
Yeah, and if it's not going well, and the alternative is all those other things, that's where I get a little bit murky. Is it worth all the bullshit of turning your stream on and having those 6,000 people tell you about what you need to do and how you need to fix your team and how you should play better, and all the fucking bullshit that comes along with top level competition and the microscope that gets put on you? That's my question. And that's something that Skadoodle is eventually going to have to answer. We have to stop talking about this. Let's talk about Killjoy. Let's move on. Something to think about. Something to think about. So Killjoy allowed in tournaments. Was she impactful? Maybe. Let's run through some VODs here. We've got the Killjoy reveal. This was a big question mark. The turrets and everything. There was a lot of concern with how this agent was going to be deployed. She came out broken. She was fixed, and she now is receiving some interesting amounts of selection. We'll get into that in just a minute, but there's lots to be discussed about Killjoy. So we'll start with you, Van Silly. How do you have you found Killjoy's impact on Valorant as a whole so far?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before at the beginning of the show, it was all about the nano swarms. That was a little bit OP when you're playing towards rank, but now that it's being, I guess, nerfed in a sense, well, not nerfed in a sense, now that it's being nerfed, period, it's going to be used a little bit less, in my opinion, at this point. Killjoy was actually really nice to watch during Pop Flash. It was nice to see her being used, the different ways that we could use her. But now that we have all these buffs coming in from the other agents too, that again, I think Breach is going to be start getting picked a lot at this point as well. I think unfortunately at this point that means that Killjoy is going to get picked a lot less.
Veli, how about you? What do you think about Killjoy so far?
Yeah, I wonder if the 40 damage compared to the 60 from the nano swarm is going to be that significant of a change. Because if that's going to be the case,
DPS.
this is probably
it's 40th.
I mean, 40. Yeah. You know what? I'm not sure. I'm waiting to see. But I really love what we saw from Killjoy. The one thing that I really like, especially coming from a scene where Intel is king, it's really cool to see the fact that we've seen a lot of teams throughout the entirety of the tournament use not just Killjoy, but paired her along with Cypher. Like, just imagine the type of intel you could get with those type of lineups, right? The type of retakes you can get, just the type of just info in general. I like her a lot. I want to see her used more. Is she ever going to replace Cypher? Hell no. But seeing teams now start to think outside the box and use their imagination is always beautiful. I want to see the meta evolve even more.
Absolutely. I think Killjoy has not made a huge impact yet. Maybe some of the changes the other agents will continue to have an effect on her. But it just doesn't seem that even with the and now even receiving some nerfs in this patch not long after she's come out. I think that we're going to see just the same stuff that we saw with Cypher pick rates, which is if there was an alternative to Cypher to go to Killjoy, that Cypher is likely going to be chosen over her because of the information he's able to provide. Exactly. His kit is still good. Much stronger. Yeah, the camera alone and the smokes and the trap wires and all the info that Cypher can provide you. I think that Killjoy is just not in the great place right now, but maybe that will change as like I said, other agents change. Like Sage, we don't know where maybe Killjoy can come in there. It's really going to be up to the big brains to kind of show us how she can be used or where she can be used in composition as they battle each other to decide where she can fit in. So let's take a look at some of these stats. This is interesting to see. So she and this is the LVL2 Clash. This is the EU tournament just wrapped up over the weekend. Her defensive win rate is 57%, but her total pick rate was 32%. And we have another follow up here as well. The Pop Flash stats, where she was picked 25% of the time and won half the time. So that's 25% of the time. It works 50% of the time, which is good math. Amazing, everybody. So
amazing.
So
new agent, 50% win rate.
Yeah, oof. I mean, decent. It's not bad. It's arguably probably where you would like if you're Riot, not looking at tournament results, but a 50% win rate is I think the ideal where you want your agents to be from a balance perspective. That's kind of I think where if I remember Overwatch correctly, that was their model. So we'll start with Veli this time. Do you think that that Killjoy is gonna grow on people, or do you think that she's gonna be that off pick for the time being?
Well, shit. Now that she got no, I'm playing. I feel like people are gonna learn to use her better. Let's be completely honest. That is significant. The fact that a new agent, where we didn't have a lot of time to really have fun with her and see what she's capable of doing, she has a 50% win rate, 52% on defense, 57% in Europe. That's insane. Those stats are insane. You don't see people doing that with Jet the first week the game is out, except Mixwell. But the thing was, it wasn't just one player using her. You had a lot of different professionals using her, which shows that she's viable. Now, the question is she worth keeping in your main lineup? Is she worth using on specific maps? I really love the the theory crafting is going to come along with that, like you said, Moses. But I think we're going to see a lot of her still. We're not going to. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to renege on what I said before. I feel like we're still going to see a lot of her. She's not going to be gone yet. I'm thinking about it more and more.
I think we're going to keep seeing her 32% of the time. I think that's probably as much as we're going to see her until that was before her nanoswarm got nerfed, and the nanoswarm is OP as hell, by the way. So I mean, like the 60 DPS, that's you're dead in 2.5 ticks, right? So it's pretty strong, especially when you can't see the grenades. So now you can see the grenades; they do less damage, and the turret is not nearly as overpowered as we all feared, which is arguably good. So Vancilli, at least from a launch perspective and an indoctrination standpoint from the agent, do you think that the fears that we had about the agent have been kind of put to rest? And do you think that even though that people kind of understand her a little bit more now from the fact that she was launched, that it will be a growing or staying the same or shrinking?
I definitely do think that with the nurse that we see currently from Killjoy, definitely it answers the fact that the fear that we had about her nanoswarm has been addressed. But now that it's been addressed at a point where it all depends, right? How can we actually see it? Can we see it quite clearly right now? Like if you're looking at this example where Pith kills those 2 people inside that pit, he walked inside there. I don't even see where those nanoswarms were. Now that they're actually more detectable and stuff like that,
they were in the corners, I think.
Oh yeah,
it looks like they were in the corners,
right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So that means because
they're in the boxes.
Yeah, and now that you can hear them better and you could see them, if you shoot them out, then maybe it nullifies the fact that you have the nanostorms that are not as useful anymore. Now, if the nanostorm is not going to be as useful anymore in the low percentage rates that she's been picked, like if you're looking at S tier or agents that are always picked in all these tournaments, Cypher is like a high 75, 80%, as well as like, for example, a Phoenix or a Raze at that point too. If you're looking at duelists that need to get duelists, right? They're super high pick rates. But then Killjoy, that's going to be a super low pick rate. Now that she's been nerfed in competitive play, after these scrims, she's probably going to get picked a lot less. So she's going to be like an 18% pick rate. It's back in the same boat as why is a Viper not picked as much? Why is Breach not picked as much? And they're going to have to try to retweak her again.
We'll see. We'll see how she goes. So before we go to commercial, through Pop Flash, we were actually blessed with some excellent memes that Flashpoint was actually making, most of which themselves. So we'll kind of browse through some of these guys. This was a good one. I like this one a lot. Here comes the big old 2-0 getting chased. And this one was my favorite. This was in relation to Sabrosa's unfortunate situation. I'm not sure if we have the video of him botching that knife, but Sabrosa forgot that there was still time on the clock and a man left in the game, and it actually ended the series. And that's just one of those things as a pro player that you never, ever want to be implicated. That's Shaq and a fool out here, man. You can't be doing that. So unfortunate. We've got a meme template for Golden Boy, which is always good. Love to see that face. Shout out to the makeup artist, by the way, making him look nice and tan and dazzling. I like this one as well.
Yes, she's amazing.
Yeah. Sabrosa, poor Sabrosa. And then that was the last one from Juke. So I was kind of, and you know what? Shout out to Rivington, by the way. He did an excellent job. Happy to see the old school league caster come in and make a big impact. Him and DDK compared, like they can't have him on the same broadcast. First of all, it looks like, you know, he's his like more handsome, distinguished uncle to DDK, or like his you know, like some close relative or something like that. But they're so handsome, both of those guys. So we have no choice out here, gentlemen. We're going to be sitting on this podcast forever. Except for Valley. Valley's going to make it. He's pretty as hell.
Of course. And sorry, while you're giving a shout out to Rivington, I want to give a huge shout out to Golden Boy as well, right? So
yes.
Golden Boy, because, you know, for the past amount of weeks and months where he's been battling with the Reddit threads and trying to prove himself on Twitter and stuff like that as well. Reddit, Twitter, everything. Like he always felt like he was in a position where he had to prove himself to the community. And my friend, you have to stop doing that because you're amazing. Like watching him over Flashpoint throughout this weekend was amazing. The way that he bantered with DDK and the way that he was able to bring his color side, his analytical side to it, it's definitely paid off. The amount of demos, the VODs that he's actually showing with his stream daily in preparation for Pop Flash has definitely shown. So my hat's off to Golden Boy, and definitely want to see more of him in a lot more events at this point.
I imagine we will. I imagine we will. He's a good lad. He's a fucking gem, that guy. And again, Shout out to all the people on Reddit who couldn't, stumble through a paragraph in English class and telling the guy how to cast. Okay, so let's move it to commercial. We're gonna take a short break. When we come back, let's go through the Clash event as well as Pop Flash. So we're gonna go deep on these two tournaments. When we come back, don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Valoranting, and now it's time to jump right into the esports results from the last weekend. We had two tournaments, two big ones, Pop Flash as well as Clash 2, the LVL Clash 2. So let's take a look at the bracket as it was decided. Bonk made a run, but they ended up getting slapped by G2, who basically marched all the way to the final without dropping a game to anybody, including FPX, their previous closest rival. NIP did drop their games to Bonk. So we're kind of at a situation still in Europe where I think it's pretty wide open. We've dealt with a lot of, I'm going to say, bad formats from a competitive standpoint. I don't know why EU has been so prevalent with those types of things. But G2 had a great match. I mean, this is a 13-4, so that's going to be that. I mean, it's G2 is owning, and that's kind of where we're at. But we also didn't see Liquid here either, I don't believe. So as far as the final round and stuff is considered, the final story of this is considered, that G2 is still on top of Europe. FPX did not have the same success as last time around, and let's just talk about it. So Vansili, I'm not sure if you had a chance to catch all the action, but walk me through your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, definitely have to do some catching up onto that one. Only caught a bit in some of the message coming through. So the first one being, I do think for a fact, though, that for G2, because Mixwell even tweeted it out, that even though they won, they're like, this wasn't our best game, and this wasn't our best tournament. And I think they're starting to feel that teams are catching up to them, and they're going to continue to practice and maintain their number one stature in EU, which is great. Why? Because, they did win 2-0 versus FPX, but there was one that went into overtime. I think it was like a 15-13 scoreline, and the second one went to like a 13-11. So FPX at that point definitely is catching up to their tails, and through this story, it unfortunately became like a one-sided affair versus Bonk. But then again, it's because we're looking back at GSL format before we got into the playoffs. That's best of one, double elimination. So we didn't see Liquid, because Liquid actually lost to Bonk in that group in 1-0 fashion. And then they went on to play, forgot the team. It starts with an S. Skade, I think. They lost versus Skade as well, I believe. Too. Yeah. Right? And now it comes down to that conversation of, yes, it's double elimination, but it's still best of fucking one. And that sucks at that point, because, yes, you only have 4 maps. It comes down to the one map. It could still be your best map if you're Team Liquid. But the thing is, based on that map, that means that you still have to give advantage to a side for another team too. An advantage to a side for certain of the maps, especially on defender side, it plays a big factor into the game. So you do need a best out of 3 to actually start seeing these more fair matchups and head-to-heads for these organizations. Now, should Liquid, technically being 3rd, 4th, or 2nd here in EU, according to certain people, according to myself as well as the top 5, should they have made it out of the group? Yes, probably at that point. But again, it's just, if you're having an off day, it just sucks having to lose to a best of one. So that is my hot take on that one. G2 still number 1, but who's going to be behind them at that point? Number 2, number 3, still up for grabs.
What about you, Veli? What were your thoughts? I mean, G2 to me is just so dominant right now that it's kind of hard to get excited for when they win. Is that a bad thing to say? Like, I'm just like, okay,
No!
like, yay, they won again.
I love it, man.
Great.
I love it.
How do you love it, man? Silly. There's no motherfucking competition. There's really nothing. And
bro,
when you take a look at say it.
Sorry. I was gonna say, like, this is like me fanboying over CS:GO when it first came out, where NIP went 87 maps to 0 when they were playing at that point too, and they're like unstoppable. I wanna have that storyline of how far can G2 go before they actually get knocked down and don't have a first place anymore. It's awesome at that point, man. If you're a Chicago's Bull fan and they were winning titles after titles, like, it's the same kind of thing. Like,
What's the difference?
What's the difference?
You know what the difference is? Michael Jordan is going against Hall of Famers. You got G2 going against motherfucking Squiggly Wigglies and Bonk in the finals in order to win like their 50th tournament in a row. That's not fun to watch.
Angel's a veteran, man. Angel's a veteran too, though, at that point, right? So they're still knocking out these Hall of Famers when they're playing these teams, man.
But
they're beating Scream.
Scream
is an all-star player.
Man.
They're beating.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Scream is an all-star player, but Liquid has been slacking, and Liquid actually removed themselves from the top 2 argument. Now, to me, Fun Plus Phoenix, they're a top 2 team. And Fun Plus Phoenix versus G2, that was the real finals in this entire tournament, Moses. They went to 2 overtimes, and you know what? FPX actually could have possibly snagged out. Oh, I love Shao, by the way. Yo, but Zippin, I don't know how to say his name correctly. Zippin, right? If he didn't lag on that ropes play, they possibly could have.
Oh yeah, that was a heartbreak. That was a heartbreak.
It was for those that didn't see it. He was hiding in ropes, and the thing was, when 3 players dropped out, I believe it was 3 or 4 players dropped down the ropes with him. He didn't see it until it was too late. It was just so unfortunate. But Liquid slacking. Yeah, Bonk in the finals against G2. It wasn't that good of a finals. The real matchup was against FPX. Now, Moses, my hot take is that the lack of competition in EU can hurt G2 more than anything else. Them beating these teams that aren't on their level over and over again. What is G2 learning? They're not getting better. TSM, they lost, and I bet damn well they're going to learn. They're going to get better from that. These other 100%. Top teams, they have other top teams to go against to get better with. Steel sharpens steel, iron sharpens iron. And that's true in this sense, in my opinion. I feel like another team like FPX really has to step up and beat G2, or we're just going to see this continuous wax and ass clapping in EU over and over again. It's not fun.
I don't think so either. And I mean, it's I would love to see more parity. And I imagine as we move past the Ignition series in whatever form it is now, we're going to see that parity when the formats relax and start getting into things that, you know, make sense competitively. I mean, best of ones is just, if you don't get your map or if you have one bad round or whatever, you're out of a tournament. That's why, you know, we had this question when before Liquid was even before Liquid was signed, and when they were Fish 1, 2, 3, when they were going out later in these crappy tournaments, well, not crappy tournaments, but like poorly formatted tournaments that didn't give them a chance to shine because they lost the best of one and we just never saw them in the semis or whatever. But I'm happy. Yeah, shout out to G2, they won. Shout out to Shao for the ace. I hope that we see more of European growth. I feel honestly, and this is, I love all the G2 guys. I think they're all awesome, but they are so, the organization is just, they have no competition. There's like, there is competition, but they're just like,
it's coming, it's coming,
man. You cannot assail their achievements in any way, and it's so early. I just want them to get taken down a peg. You know, it's like TSM. If TSM won everything, we'd be like, oh, geez, I wish someone would beat TSM so we have something to talk about.
It felt good to watch them lose.
I think it's coming, man. I talked about FPX, how they put up a good fight versus G2, an overtime match, one that went the distance. And at the same time, when you're looking at this tournament, their in-game leader, Angel, actually did not go negative once in all the matches that they played. They played like, what, 3 matches at this point? But he didn't go negative in all the maps that they played, and he actually even top frag for some of the maps too. So to have an in-game leader that's able to call and at the same time frag for a team, that's a lot. You have Zipan that's added to the roster. You have Shao that's added to the roster. I think as they need a bit of time, right? This is a newly formed team for like 2-3 weeks ago that still needs to sharpen up some edges in terms of communicating in English, and which I can't do right now, and also having Angel helm the strategy for the team to actually beat a team like G2. I think it's coming very, very soon, which is why alarming posts from Mixwell saying, look, we didn't play our best Valorant. We're going to continue to practice and be the best and be number one. They know that the competition is coming and catching up at this point. So I like that. And to Veli's point, saying like, you know, there's always one dominating team. I think that could be the case, for example, for Vision Strikers in Korea or Absolute Jupiter in Japan. When it comes down to when we're going to have a world-class tournament, I think G2 definitely could still hang and even beat a lot of the top North American teams that we currently have. But a top team in Japan or a top team in Korea might still be outside of the 12 to 16 final finishes in tournament at that point. So I think G2 definitely, if it's not going to be within Europe, once we actually are able to play within continents, they're definitely just going to one up each other, just like Sentinels, just like TSM as well.
I think so too, and I think that the evolution of the whole European scene is just behind. It's weird in attack shooter, considering CS is a European dominance, to have Valorant be. I don't know. It feels like they're not really taking it seriously in a way. I don't know if it's just
growing.
like
it's young.
It's growing, but I would love to see. These are all people that have the experience. But let's talk about the stuff we all love to talk about, which is North American Valorant, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Who knows what's happening anymore? The superior region, of course. So we didn't touch on Artis, who I believe, I'm not sure if we have his tweet in here, but he basically he did say that North American Valorant is just everyone counter-stratting each other, which in the case of Dignitas was effective against one team. But let's talk about the entire groups here. Pop Flash, the last North American Ignition Series event, the Sentinels did take it. Envy did come in second, which was huge for them. C9 did take third, and Dignitas did take fourth. So aside from the fact that TSM got aced out of the whole tournament, there was a lot to talk about, but I guess we'll start the discussion with this, Vansili. 8 teams. Do you think that's enough? Do you think that all the storylines were included? And do you think that in the lore of North American Ignition Series Valorant, that Pop Flash was an impactful tournament in your mind?
I think so, because when you mentioned it too, like we didn't think about the teams that are outside of the top 8 when we looked at Pop Flash, and I was thinking, okay, who's around? We have Complexity, we have Renegades, we have China Win. We have a couple of teams that are up and coming, and a couple of teams that are doing very well within the tier 2. But when you're looking at the final finishes in the past Ignition Series, in the past tournaments, it's always been pretty much these top 8 that we see there. So I think for the format that they have, based on the focus for Pop Flash, wasn't necessarily to have as many teams as possible to bring that competition in, but it's also to show that they have the production value for it too. And to mix studio time with the tournament, I think 8 teams was the best format, and we still had some very, very good Valorant out of these 8 teams that participate. I mean, the storylines coming in with the Dark Horses and stuff like that too. I think Dignitas definitely proved that point, that there were the Dark Horse in this tournament, and overall the 8 teams was definitely enough for the 4 days that we had. 4 days, 5 days, 4 days.
I think it was 5. Yeah, maybe 4.
That's it.
I
Right?
can't
So
remember.
it was a lot to play within, right? Within GSL format.
Yeah. And they wanted to watch every team, as well.
Exactly. So you add more, and it just becomes like a logistical nightmare from a production perspective. So I think choosing 8 teams, if you had to nitpick, I think they chose the best 8 teams for the product that they wanted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So and Veli, looking at the results, do you and this is kind of like Sentinels winning is not really the most interesting part to me here, because they did not really have too much resistance in winning. They owned, so it was a very dominant Sentinels victory. So I mean, if we wanted to touch on them a little bit, they lost 1 round on the way to winning the whole thing. So that's kind of the Sentinels mindset, that they're a superstar team. They've got superstar caliber talent in Sinatra, probably the best player in all of Valorant right now, from an overall perspective. Yep. Shout out to Tens, of course, as well. But the results in pairing with his skill has elevated Sentinels to this place where to kind of again lend from artists, where counter-stratting is what needs to be done to beat them. And in the case of Envy, I think they played an excellent tournament. They did get that second place. But there was a lot of other teams missing that they might have tripped themselves up on a little bit on the way to that second place. 8 teams potentially that could have tripped. It's a bit of a question mark. Is this a big deal for Envy? Obviously, it's great on paper, but in the greater scheme of the entire North American Valorant ecosystem, is Envy climbing the power rankings? I kind of think they are, but maybe not to the point where we're considering them a top 3 team.
No. They're not a top 3 team, but they were working their way to get up there. You and I actually was talking about Envy when the org first picked them up, and we spoke about, I believe Sideshow was on that episode as well. I think Envy definitely earned that second place finish. And you take a look at their track record as well. They got 4th place at the tournament behind that. They got top 6 at the FaZe Clan Invitational. They had top 8 at the PAX Arena. They're only getting better week by week. So to say that Envy aren't moving up the power rankings in general, that's just crazy. Like, that's crazy talk, actually. I love this team. And the fact that they're consistently getting better is great. Yeah, they had no chance in the finals, but the fact that they even went round for round, pound for pound, shot for shot against the best in the game, that's significant, man. The way that this team is being ran right now and just their progression is beautiful. It's like poetry in motion, right? I love watching teams rise to the top.
Absolutely. I think the Envy's definitely got a great trajectory, and they've also got a great org behind them and a lot of chemistry as well. Love seeing the reactions from Envy. So let's take a look at actually I just want to kind of, I know we saw the whole bracket, but I want to talk about, obviously T1 went 0-2. They had a negative 22 round differential. That team's in disarray. Immortals actually, yeah, negative 22 in Group B. They just straight up did not make it out of groups. Gen G also didn't make it out of groups, which what can you say? I mean, unfortunately, Immortals found themselves in the same boat. So there's, to me, like Gen G is not an 0-2 and out of a tournament team. T1 kind of is, but even Immortals not making it was kind of rough. So it's just I don't know what to take away from this. I really don't know.
Yeah. If I could add on to that, actually, like,
go ahead, man. Sorry.
Yeah, Group A was tough, man. At that point, Group A was a group of death for sure, Veli. And when you're looking at Gen G, like, we all know Gen G as being like this type of like methodical type of team that could beat any team, but that because they're so methodical and very, I guess, attentive to their details and how they move, they could also be easily beaten because their play is not something out of the ordinary, right? It's something that could be countered just due to the fact that, oh, I know that Effie's is going to play here, I could pick him off with this, or vice versa. But on any other given day, they could still beat other teams, right? And when they lost versus Cloud9, Cloud9's on an up and up, and Cloud9 also changed their strategies a bit. I mean, if you're looking at their composition on Haven, they actually went with 3 duelists, right? They had a Jet, they had a Raze, and they had a Reyna, right? So you had Mitch that went away from opping with a Sage before to actually battling as a Sage to now opping as a Jet. You have Tens playing as a Reyna, and then you have a Raze to help him out. I think with Relics, is it Relics at that point? I can't remember. But that actually helps a lot in terms of firepower, and it changes the meta of how this map is being played, or just how compositions could definitely change. It's not always about, oh, I need a Sentinel, I need this, I need that. Sometimes you could just go all out fragging and still win. So a hot take from Cloud9 is that with the way that they changed their compositions and their strategy off the helm of Shinobi, that has a lot of flack from being a person that can frag but still has a great mind, to still get a third place out of this tournament based on a brand new strategy, I think it's great coming out of that one. Gen G getting knocked out of group 0-2. Well, the group that they had to play, or the team that they had to play in the lower brackets, was TSM. And we know TSM that if they lose a map early or a series early, they come back with a vengeance. So it's very, very hard to beat a TSM that's thirsty at that point too, right? So it was such a tough group, and so hard for all of these organizations coming out of group as well, that it's still up for grabs when we're talking about power rankings. I could definitely say that Sentinels and Sentinels and TSM are definitely those top 2 teams. But when you're going at number 3, who's the number 3? Is it Cloud9? Is it Envy? I think it's the battle for that right now. Could it be Dignitas? Right, Dignitas, like they played and they beat T1 on an upset as Homeless, and now they're able to beat TSM in 2 series in Pop Flash. That boosts them up in the power ranking at that point too, even though it's only been 2 events. But they played with Shanks. They played with a a tryout for the roster, and Shanks definitely killed it as a jet op, right? His clutch that Shanks he had on a 3 versus 1, he was dope. He was dope to watch. I mean, that roster for Dignitas is looking scary right now too.
Absolutely. I think that I think that there's going to be a lot of I think there's going to be a lot of question marks coming out of this tournament, but I ultimately believe that well, first of all, I want to make something very clear. Pot Flash was an excellent tournament. It was well run. And this is something that only people like only people in production or in broadcast can appreciate. Their audio mix was tremendous. There was no audio issues. We had the live in studio. You had great pairings. They kept it fresh. They had great between the scenes content. They had call-ins. All these things that they had tremendous quality. But they were also confined with how like they wanted to do it at a very high quality, but that means they had to restrict the format. So teams like FaZe wasn't there. Obviously, 100 Thieves was unable to field a roster. There's a lot of open threads that just weren't covered in this that we've had covered in other events. So I kind of think that it was a great way to end things, but I definitely don't feel satisfied like I did after like the FaZe Invitational or the PAX Invitational, where we had so many more conflicts and question marks, and for Dignitas especially, are they a counter-stratting team? You know, because again, looking back at their performance, they did go 2-1 out of groups, but with a negative round differential. So if you're talking about the group of death, the only people that had a positive round differential coming out of Group A was Cloud9, and in Group B it was Sentinels and Envy, but just by a little bit. So a lot of question marks around Dignitas as a team. I still think they need a lot more time in the oven to be considered a consistent top 5 team. But it's exciting, and that's something I wish that we could experience in the rest of the world as well. So you know I guess let's just kind of open it up to the Reddit questions. Veli, do you think that Dignitas is straight up better than TSM, or was it a counter-stratting bonanza?
That's a stupid ass question. TSM is definitely better than Dignitas. like that's a trap game.
Stupid ass question. I read that right off the run of show, by the way.
Stupid ass question. Like, no, Dignitas aren't as good as a team that can win full events. No, it's just they have their number. Everybody has that. Every team has that. Every top team has a weakness against that one fucking 7th, 16th place team where it's just they have something against them that they can't beat. And me personally, I think it was just full teamwork. I feel like, you know what? This team, tracking back their last 3 series against TSM, they played the same maps. Shocker, you know, there's only so many maps in the game. But going back, you know, Dignitas, they were able to capitalize on Haven and Bind when they know for a fact that they have played TSM on Haven and Bind previously in the last 2 tournaments. And they've done extremely well winning those maps against TSM as well. So now that they got their map pool figured out and everyone was firing off on all cylinders, it was pretty much an easy win. And also at the same time, everyone VOD reviews TSM. TSM is the top team in the game. Everyone knows how they play. Everyone knows what to expect. So that's the reason I was asking myself this morning, why does TSM have such close games against a lot of people nowadays? And the games seem to be getting closer and closer. Meanwhile, okay, stop flexing. We get it. You lift, bro. But meanwhile, you have teams like Sentinels that just demolish teams. It could possibly be for the fact that teams are fighting shit out of them. My bad. But yeah,
no, it's all good,
really,
dude.
My biggest question that I want to bring up, and I'm not saying that it is a reason why they lost. I wonder if this top-heavy frag approach from TSM could finally be catching up to them. Yes, it's their first loss in groups against Dignitas. It could just be a one-off thing. But if this happens again in the future, that's when we have to look at these situations. I hope that they pick things up because it's not looking good.
I'm out.
Uh-oh.
I want to read this to you guys. I'm gonna put this to you real quick. I'm gonna read this right off the chat here. You guys don't give Sentinels enough credit.
What did I just say?
What
did I just say?
Talking about? You know, here's the deal. Sentinels is the best team. Okay, they're the best. We talked about that. That's the constant. They went 2-0 all the way to the goddamn championship. We're talking about all the plebs beneath them, like TSM and Dignitas and all the other people. Yeah, exactly. They're dummying everybody. Of course, they're the best. What more credit do you want? Jesus Christ. Anyway, just shout out to that one guy.
Just a bit more.
But I mean, so for me, my top 3 right now in North American Valorant, since we're on that topic now anyway, is Sentinels, TSM, C9. I think that's my top 3 right now. C9, I think still needs something. They need something. I think maybe they need to like overcharge 10s to the point where I don't know, like they just plug them in for an extra hour, or they keep them, maybe plug the USB, get them a USB-C port instead of like one of those old ass micro USB ports to charge them. But man, the guy, I wish we had the. I wish we had the top 2. Yeah, Jesus Christ, man! Like I don't know, I don't know if anyone was telling him that they were winning games in incredible fashion. But like he was just like stone faced, just like, oh my god, can you believe 10 just pulled it off? And they cut to 10s. He's just like,
you wonder how dominant he was? 10 had the most kills per round at 0.96. Yeah. But you have players like Sinatra behind him at 0.88. 0.88. Yeah. We're talking about motherfucking Sinatra, man. That's insane.
Yeah.
The stuff that he's able to
dude. Well, but the thing with Sinatra versus tens is that I think like if you plug tens into like if like Jet ever gets a nerf ever in life, I wonder a little bit about how that affects, you know, some of the star caliber talent in Valorant. So my question is that if I'm going to be looking at tens versus Sinatra from a 1-to-1 talent perspective, I mean, the man went from Overwatch League MVP a year ago to being the arguably best player in the world at Valorant. A brand new game, completely different than the one he was playing before. The man is a god. So from a flexibility standpoint, I could give Sinatra, like, guess what? You're a competitive trombone player now. I bet you that guy's playing me some sweet ass trombone in like 3 weeks. You know what I mean? So I'm taking, like, from a flexibility standpoint, I'm taking Sinatra all day long, every day. So anyway, that's that. So I guess to wrap our thoughts up on everything right now, I hope to God we have more tournaments next week, because it's going to be a sad day when we can't talk about things like this. So as far as a send off to North American Valorant, shout out to Sentinels. I'm calling them the Ignition Series North American champions. I don't think that you could argue that in any sense of the word. And to have the beginning they did, the rise and now the dominance, they are the team to beat. And we can only dream. Maybe we get a bubble like the NBA did for like G2 versus Sentinels. Just put them in like a cruise ship in the ocean and run a special fiber line out there where we can see some high level action. I'm not sure why I decided to put in the ocean. I just like to make things logistically complicated. That's why I don't run tournaments.
You got something interesting, Moses.
Actually, speaking of which, I think Scott's starting an island nation so we can do it at his house.
Oh, you're right. You know, Moses, you said something is really interesting. Now, if there was ever a debate right now, a Kobe versus LeBron type debate for Sentinels versus TSM, yo, I'm going with Sentinels now.
Of course.
Easily. Not a question. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not crazy. Players. There you go. All right, I just want to make sure me and you weren't crazy, Moses, because I was thinking that. I'm like, am I stupid for saying that? Like, wholeheartedly, this is
Van Silly's trying to get Van Silly's simping for TSM out here. He's like, well, actually, as long as they follow me back on Twitter. I'm just putting him at tie.
This is like T1, like tied up first place, and then we just do one more event.
I'm gonna tell you this, Van Silly. I'm gonna say this: if Wardale isn't on his A game, does TSM win? If Sinatra ain't on his A game, you said yeah.
They still have Drone and Sabrosa.
You out of your damn mind, man. Compared to Sentinels, if Sinatra has a bad day,
it's not that it's not close.
Can still win.
It's pretty close, man.
It's not that it's not close, but right now, I don't think that if you were to run 10 series on all 4 maps, best of 4s every single time, for whatever reason, that TSM is going to win more than Sentinels. Okay, you know, I don't think you could say that right now.
To code it. Somebody needs to code it so we could actually run that simulation.
Yeah, let's use best of 4s. That's my new tournament format. On the cruise ship, best of 4s only, single elimination. Anyway, that's it. We're out of show to talk about. So hopefully we have more next week. I would love to see what happens as the Valorant community is going to be going into a bit of a snooze as we'll be looking around different regions. But we do have, I imagine we're going to be talking more about the other international regions like Japan, who has again been running good tournaments and has some interesting. Okay, Veli's got something. Go ahead, Veli.
I want to say something. I want to actually do something for the show because the show has done something for me. Next show, and Scott, everybody back in production, make sure you tweet this shit out, okay? Like, because the community is giving me something, I have fun every week doing this. I'm gonna give back to the community and also Do Not Peak Entertainment. I want to take $100 and let's just do a fucking giveaway next show, man. I just want to give it out.
$100.
How's that sound? Are we able to do that?
Okay. You can just give it to me if you want.
No, hell, we're doing like you no.
you want to pick somebody else.
It could be for anything. Listen, we could have a contest. It could be randomly given out, in the middle or the end of the show by anybody out there. I just want to just give back to the community, man.
Good man, Billy.
Okay.
All right.
I need a haircut, so
let's do it.
Keep me in mind. All right, so that's it for the show. I want to give a big shout out to Veli. Rich Veli obviously got paid recently because he's spending his money like he ain't gonna run out. So shout out to DNV as well. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all the places you can find us. You can also find the podcast everywhere podcasts are found, except for those weird, like, ambiguous apps that no one trusts. And shout out to, of course, my co-casters, Vancilli and Veli. It's been an absolute pleasure. You can catch us next week, Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, same bad time, same bad. Okay, I'm trying to close the show, Veli. What's going on?
I just thought of one more thing. How about this? If we get more than 150 viewers next time, I'll give $150. How about that? So we'll do that as well.
Okay.
He is rich.
So everyone, he is rich. Clearly, $150.
So I'm gonna do that $100 giveaway next show. But if we get over 150 viewers, I give away $150. Let's get the viewership up. Let's get this thing going.
There we go.
So yeah,
pay to play, exactly.
Production, I hear you in the background. Shut up, man.
Are we gonna have to do a hashtag ad? Like, did Veli just implicate us with the FTC? Yeah, we're gonna have to find out. Actually, I think they're pulling us off the air. We have to get off now. Our lawyers are calling us. So thank you guys for watching. Yeah. We'll see you guys next week, where Veli's giving away all $150 he's got left in his checking account over the weekend. So he had a big strip club weekend. Anyway, we'll see you guys. Shut up to it. Okay, we'll see you guys later. Bye.